What I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful. We'd like to start the very first session of the International Development Select Committee. It is a new committee that we've got here for this new Parliament, and it is my great honour that our very first witness is Professor Nizam Mamode, who is a Professor of Transplant Surgery. But Nizam, you're here in front of us because you have recently returned from Gaza and doing some work in the hospitals over there. We really appreciate you coming and speaking to us today. It's very difficult to get first-hand testimony, obviously, about what's going on in Gaza at the moment. So thank you for coming and sort of sharing your experiences. I wonder if you could sort of properly introduce yourself and what you were actually doing out there and when you came back.
Yes, so I'm no longer a Professor of Transplant Surgery. I retired from the NHS a couple of years ago. And I've spent my time doing work overseas. So I had a month in Gaza, mid-August to mid-September, working in Nasser Hospital with medical aid for Palestinians. And I'm happy to tell you about my experiences there.
Please, tell us, so when did you go? Why did you go?
Why did I go? Because I thought I had the skill set that could help. I did... When I was sitting in the convoy, going in across the border, I did have second thoughts, but it was too late then to get out of the convoy. And I think when we crossed the border, the first thing was really a complete sense of shock.
What did you see? What did you smell?
You see a landscape that looks as though it reminded me of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Devastation, buildings reduced to rubble for miles around as far as you can see, nothing growing, no people, a few looters here and there, but nothing. You drive through that for about 20 minutes, and then you get to the central part of southern Gaza, which was the designated the green zone. I can't bring myself to call it the safe zone or humanitarian zone because it was neither. That green zone houses about 1.3 million people.
What sort of area is that?
It's probably about the size of the City of London. You can walk across it fairly easily if it was safe to do so. And a large part of it comprises of tents. And when I say tents, some of those are proper tents. Many of them are just pieces of carpet and plastic stuck onto sticks. And these are in the middle of the road, side of the road, every possible space. There's no running water, no sanitation, no electricity, obviously. And people are having to roll those up and move on at very, very short notice. Time and time again, most people have moved 6 or 7 times.
What does it sound, smell?
Well, the sound is mainly of 2 things. One is drones, so there's constant drones. And the drones existed before October last year. It's been a feature of Palestinian life for some time. But now... the drones inspire fear, I think, and they inspire fear in me. And when I used to debate about sleeping outside on the stairs or inside in this very crowded hot room, part of that decision was whether the drones had the ability to pick me off when I was on the stairs.
Identify you?
Sorry?
Identify you?
No, shoot me. So that's what they do. Those drones are surveillance drones, but they are also drones that shoot people regularly. And I can tell you more about some of the people I've operated on who experienced that. So you have this constant whine, which is very psychologically very affecting because it represents danger and it's constantly there. And the other sound that you hear are bombs, which were going off every hour or two throughout the month that I was there. And we spent the whole month in the hospital. We deemed it not safe to travel, and we were aware that there was a curfew, so we wanted to be in the hospital if casualties arrived at night. We did have a guest house. We didn't want to stay there, partly because of the travel, but also because one of the MAP guest houses had been bombed in January of this year. So we stayed in the hospital, and a missile strike or an artillery shell would explode in the vicinity and the whole building would shake. Windows would rattle. You would look out the window or run outside to see how close it was. It was a constant feature of life. We felt we were relatively safe because we thought it's unlikely there'll be a direct strike on the hospital, but for those 1.3, 1.4 million people in that green zone, they were constantly being bombed day and night. And what I think I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful that you're making the time to be here today, and I can only imagine just how it has impacted you and will continue to impact you. And I feel, because you can't unsee what you've seen, but being able to share that with us really helps us hold legislators particularly to account. So we do appreciate the time that you're making for us today. Thank you.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children, and we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children who would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's clearly a deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day, and that meant 10 to 20 dead, 20 to 40 seriously injured. Now, a hospital like Guy's, where I used to work, Guy's and St Thomas's, might get 1 or 2 a year. We had 1 or 2 a day. And 60 to 70% of the people we treated were women and children.
I'm sorry to do this, draw you a little. You say children. I wonder if you could tell us sort of the ages of the children. And you say that they said that they were lying on the ground from a bomb shock. Do you believe them?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, a 7-year-old's not going to make up a story.
We're talking little children,
yeah.
not late teens.
Well, from the majority of the children who were casualties were young children, but we had casualties in their teens, we had women in their 30s, and it was a very consistent story. And the story would be given as soon as they came into the emergency department. So I have absolutely no reason to doubt this. And the bullets that the drones fire are these small cuboid pellets, and I fished a number of those out of the abdomen of small children. I think the youngest I operated on was a 3-year-old who had a major injury to the artery in her neck, and we used the last shunt, which is a device you use to bypass the artery in the neck to keep supplying blood to the brain. We used the last one in the hospital because those kinds of things are just not available. She died about 3 or 4 days later from infection.
You believe it was deliberate targeting of civilians?
Absolutely, there's absolutely no question in my mind, and it's been the experience of so many healthcare workers who've documented it time and time and time again. But my personal experience and those of my colleagues is This was clearly persistent, deliberate targeting of civilians. And I've worked in a number of conflict zones in different parts of the world. I was there at the time of the Rwandan genocide. I've never seen anything on this scale, ever. And that was also the view of all the experienced colleagues that I worked with. One of the surgeons in my team had been to Ukraine 5 times and said, this is 10 times worse. Normally in a conflict zone, you would have a front line, you'd have fighting going on between 2 sets of forces, and you might get some civilians injured in that exchange. There doesn't seem to be a front line. There just seems to be 1.4 million people trapped, they can't leave, and having bombs dropped on them on a daily basis, and then drones coming in and shooting them. And there's plenty of evidence out there from Israeli soldiers that that's what's going on. But we saw it, we saw the results of it.